Start the recording. Order Board of Zoning Appeals for Monday, June 13th. First order of business is approval of the minutes from the May 23rd meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Polar to approve. Second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next up is any special requests or continuances?
None.
None. All right, then we'll move to findings of fact. First up is BCA 2022-0013.
Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision or final action for variance petition number BCA 2022-0013.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Same for BCA 2022-12.
In consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into record as our final decision, final action for variance petition number BZA 2022-012.
Motion by Mr. Polar, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Right hand, Mr. Mull. BCA 2022-016.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. President, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2022-016.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Mull. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And 2022-017.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into record as our final decision, final action for variance petition number BZA 2021 or 2022-017.
Motion by Mr. Mull, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0. Right hand, Mr. Fuller. All right. We do have some old business, so we will begin tonight with BCA 2022-011, a development standards variance for Greenwood Parks and Recreation requesting relief in the Unified Development Ordinance, section 10-3-8, for an on-premise sign allowed by permit and building wall signs dimension maximum face area of 200 square feet, and they're requesting a 216.75 square foot wall sign for the new Greenwood Field House. All those wishing to present, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in by our secretary.
You swear no penalties for perjury, testimony given is true to the best of your knowledge.
Name and address for the record, please.
It's Rob Taggart, City of Greenwood, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Mr. Taggart, tell us why you're here.
We are asking petition variance to install a vinyl sign seen on the north facade of the field house. Parks Department have created a sponsorship matrix. Will help offset payments costs and also capital funds that could go into the city's coffers as well. We have partnered with Hubler. In addition to that, anything we do as far as sponsorships, as far as building, we like to co-brand, and hence the Greenwood Field House co-branded there below that as well. The installation of the face of that facade be vinyl, and then given the setback and the overall scale of the structure, we felt that this was a proportionate size for that impression. However, it did put us over the allowable amount for that sign.
And to be clear, I think this one is specific to the Hubler sign, and the next one we're going to hear is specific to adding the Greenwood Fieldhouse sign.
That's correct.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Do you have your answers to your statutory criteria with you?
Yes.
we'll walk through them for the record. So number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because. If you can read your answer to that. Or...
Yeah, please. The proposed sign that exceeds 200 square feet max, the sign ordinance, the proposed increase will not adversely affect public health and safety.
The number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because.
Vinyl sign will be installed on the north facade of the field house. The north facade setback from Serena Way is approximately 175 legal feet. The north facade setback from nearest structure, which is the library, is estimated 340 legal feet. Therefore, we do not see this being a substantially adversely affecting any surrounding structures.
Okay. Number three, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
The adherence to the zoning ordinance will result in a disproportionate sign when contrasted to field house, building setback, and surrounding structures.
And number four, I will take the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. So staff has no objections, and they do have one proposed condition, which is that the wall signs substantially conform to the sign drawing and dimensions submitted with this petition and attaches Exhibit E, which I'm assuming you have no issue with. Mr. Nelson, you, I think, wish to speak?
Yes, so I was just going to explain the two variances. This is just the Hubler sign. Later on, they proposed the Greenwood sign to code brand, which further exceeded. That's the reason for the two variances that we have tonight. And like we said in the staff report, we agree with the petitioner statements of reasons.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Taggart, before I close the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. To the board, Ms. Peters, any questions or comments?
I do have one question. Now, I recognize this a commercial sponsor, and historically sponsors change. So the size of the sign, is that you expect it to be unique to Hubler, or is that the size of the sign of any future sponsors that would replace Hubler?
So it's a 10-year sponsorship. Being that the ordinance will stay consistent in the next 10 years, we foresee it fitting within this standard here that's been created.
So I
It'll be
guess
the
my
same
point
size
is, in the future, if it would change, then we would have to come back to the board for a variance. Is that my
Potentially.
understanding?
Sean, I just question, this is specific to that extended size, and it would not be beyond that.
Correct, it's just the size. If they wanted to enlarge it, you'd have to get more. We don't regulate the message.
So
Well, that's what I was trying to make
Yeah.
clear, that,
Yes.
it would be.
so I mean, we're looking strictly at the size of the sign and not the
Yes.
message on the sign.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's all
We're-
I'm concerned with. Yeah.
So we're content neutral as far as the wording of the sign. We cannot regulate what the sign says.
Right, I have no problem with that. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear what we were saying. Are we saying we're looking at the Hubler sign? Or are we saying we're looking at a sign of this dimension regardless of the sponsorship in there?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Fuller?
I think I understand that. So what we're saying is if Ray Skillman decided to sponsor after 10 years, they don't have to come back to this board unless it's bigger than
Unless it's
the,
bigger,
but
yes.
that we've already.
Correct. They can go beyond the 200 to the 217 point.
Or something else, if maybe if they wanted to
216.75.
light it with something that's not
Gotcha.
allowed, something
Okay.
like that.
Then I-
It'd
then
be
I
a
understand.
structural or a dimension.
Right. We're looking at size on it.
Mr. King?
Nothing.
Mr. Mall?
Okay, I got a question. So looking at the dimensions for this Greenwood Fieldhouse compared to what this is, and for co-branding, I feel like for being a co-brand, wouldn't the Greenwood Fieldhouse should be up top bigger and then have the Hubler down below, or is that a deal that you struck with Hubler as far as sponsoring them?
Felt that because of the exposure of the north facade, that is what we worked out the best sponsorship. But is that in reference to this?
Yeah, I was just, to me, it's like, it's so big and then the Greenwood sign's so tiny and I'm like, I don't know, it seems like, is it the field house or is it the Hubler dealership? I guess, just asking because I see it every time I drive by. I'm just like,
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get attracted to the Hubler sign.
Yeah.
Field house, which I guessing is what Hubler wants people to see for their money, so. I do agree that from specifically for us, which is the size of the sign, it is much more in line. I mean, it doesn't look too big. You know, I think it could be too small otherwise, so I definitely think that from that perspective and being visual from the roadside, it is appropriate. Any other questions?
This is the size, what we see on the building now is the size of the question, right?
Yes,
It's not changed.
that is correct.
It's already.
Okay.
Yeah, if we choose not to approve it, they would have to take it down or put a smaller one up. So, and keep in mind, again, the message is we don't control it. You said 200 feet, they can put a 200 feet advertising sign up there. Just what it is. Okay, then are all the notices, receipts, affidavits, everything in order?
They're in order and in our file.
And I submitted to the record the certified copy of the Unified Development Ordinance and the comprehensive plan.
Take a motion to accept them all into the record.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Polar, second by Mr. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. I'll take a motion on the docket itself.
Chairman, I recommend that we approve the request with the condition that the sign shall substantially conform to the sign drawing and dimensions submitted with the petition and attached as Exhibit B.
Motion by Mrs. Polar to approve with the one condition.
No, Mrs. Peters.
Mrs. Peters. We're all in it.
We're all
I'm
this
a
today,
right
aren't
hand
we?
left guy.
All right. Motion by Mrs. Peters to approve with the one condition. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Polar. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-1.
No, I was. Struggle spreading now.
Next up
no.
is DC.
Chairman,
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2022-011. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Polar. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Now we'll move on. So you're good to go on that one. We'll move on. I assume you're going to speak to BCA 2022-18, which is actually what's next on the agenda. So we'll stay with this, which is BCA 2022-018 under new business. Greenwood Parks and Recreation, again requesting relief from Unified Development Ordinance Section 10-3-8 signage. On-premise signs allowed by permits and a building wall sign dimension maximum 200 square feet. Requesting an additional 41.25 square foot wall sign that, assuming the approval of BCA 2022-11, which was approved, would increase the total signage on the north elevation of Field House over the allowable maximum by now 58 square feet. So I guess Mr. Taggart, please go ahead and tell us. Oh, yes, we do need to swear you in again. For just a
Because
second.
we're doing two different ones.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fuller.
These are other penalties of perjury, and testimony given to the best of your knowledge.
Okay, and Mr. Nelson, nothing more to add from last time?
Nothing more.
All right, Mr. Taggart, tell us about this specifically for the field house sign.
This sounds very familiar. It's the last one that you just heard. It's the installation of the exterior vinyl sign on the north facing facade of the Greenwood Fieldhouse. As vinyl signage is proposed at a proportionate scale with the structure, landmarks, and building setback. The proposed vinyl signage, as you already alluded to, that's 30 inches by 199 inches. That's roughly 41.25 square feet. Note in addition to the proposed 216 square feet of the vinyl signage, which you guys would.
Okay. And we do need to walk through the criteria again specific to this one. So number one, the approval will not be injurious to public health and safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
The proposed sign in combination with the previous discussed Hubler sign exceeds the 200 square feet max sign ordinance by 57, or what you said, 58 square feet. The proposed increase will not adversely affect public health and safety.
number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The vinyl sign will be installed on the north facade of the field house. The facade setback from Serena Way is approximately 175 lineal feet. The north facade setback from the nearest structure, which in this case would be the library, is approximately 340 lineal feet.
and number three, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
Adherence to zoning ordinance will result in a disproportionate sign, contrasted to field house, building setback, and surrounding structures.
and number four, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Again, the staff has no objections, but they have the similar proposed condition that it shall substantially conform to the sign drawing and dimensions submitted with this petition and attached to Exhibit B. I'll put it there. Anything else to add before we close the public hearing?
No, sir.
All right, public hearing is closed. Mrs. Peters, anything on this one? Mr. Pollard?
No questions.
Mr. King? Mr. Mull?
Can I ask, is it possible to make that sign bigger to kind of like even raise it up to the glass to make it look a little more uniform with the Hubler sign?
We felt with the feature of the glazing, putting that actual vinyl on the glazing, is something that we didn't want that instruction more on the glass. And that's why it was on the actual metal panels versus the glaze.
Yeah, I have no additional question to that. The answer to your question is if they could request that if they ever chose to do so. Okay, are all the notices, receipts, affidavits in order for this one?
They are in order. I do have one point of question or maybe clarification. The staff report did reference 58 square feet addition, and I think your number is a little different than 58 square feet.
My number was 67.25.
Oh, okay. Just making sure because I wanted it to be consistent for what your needs were.
Yeah.
And then if they were to make it larger, that would be a variance to further exceed the size. But records are in order.
Okay,
And a certified copy of the Unified Development Ordinance and the comprehensive plan have now been placed into the record.
I'll take a motion to accept all that into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statements of reason, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any demonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Second. Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And I'll take a motion on the ballot itself.
Mr. Chairman, I approve, or I move to approve this request for variance on BZA 2022-018.
With the condition.
There is no.
Yes.
There wasn't a planning, not on the ballot, so
They
you
didn't.
can choose if you want to take the one for the
Yeah.
staff report, which is that is substantially comply
With the condition, the wall sign shall substantially conform to the sign drawing and dimensions submitted with this petition as attached as Exhibit B.
Motion by Mr. Fuller, second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Take a motion to direct the Corporation Council to draft findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2022-018. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Taggett. Thank you. Next on the agenda is BZA 2022-015, development standards variance for Crossroad Engineers on behalf of Christopher J. Browning, requesting relief from Unified Development Ordinance Section 10-2-19. This is requesting a maximum front building setback distance of 80 feet in a CM commercial medium zone. They're requesting to increase the maximum from 80 to 92 for the proposed building. So all those wishing to speak on behalf of this docket, please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Do you swear on oath of perjury? Testimony is true to the best of your knowledge.
Tell us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Justin Hoxeller. I'm with Crossroad Engineers, located at 115 North 17th Avenue, Beach Grove, Indiana, 46107. On behalf of Christopher Browning with Visionware LLC, requesting development standard variance for Vision Quest Eye Care in Swartz Crossing Commercial Subdivision, docket ZA 2022-015. It's a quick vicinity map, just to give you an idea of where it is located within Greenwood. It's on the west side of Greenwood, along 135, south of Stones Crossing Road. A little closer up, here's a location map of Swartz Crossing Commercial Subdivision. The project location is proposed lot B2, right across from the old Marsh supermarket along 135. Here's a parcel map and a block B within that subdivision. This is a little old based on a replat that we've already done for this block. This is the latest replat plan. North is to the right on your screen. Lot B1 was replatted a couple months ago and just recorded recently. As part of this replat, we will create lot B2 and lot B3. The one in question for today is lot B2 in the middle of this block. Zoning map, this lot is zoned as commercial medium, surrounded on the north and south side by also commercial medium. To the east is commercial large. To the west, you got Bargersville C3, which is also medium commercial. Here's a slide of the proposed site plan of our latest construction plans. So north is up on this picture. To the left, you got Sabre 135. To the east of the lot, you have proposed Swartz Crossing Boulevard, which is going to be constructed here very soon. The center of the lot, you got the optometry office, which is also a multi-tenant building. There will be potential for a future tenant on the north side of the building by that north entrance. Improvements as part of this project would be parking lot, sidewalk. There will be rain gardens in most of the islands on the site for water quality. And access will be from Swartz Crossing Boulevard only. There's a shared access drive on the south side there that'll serve this property and then the property to the south whenever that gets developed. So the variance we're requesting is the increase of front yard setback from State Road 135 and Swartz Crossing Boulevard from the maximum of 80 to 92 feet. Here's an exhibit of how the setback will change. The green line is the 80-foot setback, and the red line is the 92-foot setback, which is right to the edge of either side of the building on the east and west side. So as far as the criteria go, I'm just going to read this off.
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you. Sure, let's start with number one. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
Increasing the distance of the building from the roadway will not create a situation or circumstance that would negatively impact traffic movements, pedestrian safety, or the like.
number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The location of the building on this respective lot has no impact to the future adjacent development or remaining undeveloped ground remains marketable and buildable per Greenwood Municipal Code.
number three, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The location of the lot is considered to have two front yards, that's on the east and the west side. The proposed building has been centered on the lot to implement landscaping per the Greenwood Municipal Code and to limit encroachments into the existing sanitary sewer and drainage and utility easements on the east side of the lot. This last sentence is actually a typo, but essentially in lieu of increasing the building's footprint to meet the existing or the current statutory criteria, the 80-foot setback, we're just asking to have that increase to 92 feet.
and this structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation.
Correct.
All right. Anything else to add?
Not for me at this time.
Mr. Nelson?
Just great presentation, summed it up pretty well. One thing I would note is it is a through lot that we have here, where it has fronts on the opposite sides, east and west. So if they were to shift the building to meet one of the front setbacks, they would put the other side further out of compliance. Really, the only way to meet the compliance of our front setback would be to have a very wide building at this lot. Staff does not think that that would be the best use for this lot. It would restrict the lot and how it's built with parking. So we are favorable of this request.
Okay. And you have no conditions listed either. All right. If no other comments, then I will close the public hearing. Mr. Peters,
No questions.
Mr. Cole,
No questions.
Mr. King,
No questions.
Mr. Moll.
I'm good.
Me, also, this does seem pretty straightforward and the reasoning. So. All right, are all the notices, receipts, affidavits in order?
They're in order in our file.
The Unified Development Ordinance and the comprehensive plan, certified copies have been placed into the record.
I'll take a motion to accept all of those into the record.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notice of receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of Unified Development Ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration of this board in regard to this petition, to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Fuller, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. I'll take a motion on the ballot itself.
I move we approve no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King to approve with no conditions, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. take a motion to direct the Corporations Council draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance petition presented in variance petition number BCA 2022-015. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next up is BCA 2022-019, a development standards variance request from Evan Iyer of Sign Tractors on behalf of the owner Mike Polcraft, requesting relief from the Unified Development Ordinance, section 1038. Pole sign zone districts. Petitioner requests to allow for modifications to an existing pole sign in the commercial small zoning district that does not allow for the placement of a pole sign. So here to on Zoom us.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Good.
Good.
Do you have the ability to turn on video?
Yeah, let me check real quick. There we go.
Oh, perfect. Hello, sir. I will have you raise your right hand there and be sworn by our secretary.
You swear to uphold this perjury, the testimony is true to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
Okay, thank you. And your name and address for the record?
Evan Iyer, 1508 Stringtown Road, Evansville, Indiana, 47711.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer. And then tell us why you're here and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, we're requesting a variance to allow for modification expansion of an existing pole sign in a commercial small zoning district. We're basically, what we're wanting to do is remove the current reader board and install an electric message unit.
Okay. And this won't increase the size. It's just replacing what's there with a different type of pole sign, correct?
Correct. And actually, yeah, it's actually the message unit is going to be a tad smaller than the current reader board. So it actually will be coming down in size a little bit.
Okay. Do you have your responses to the statutory criteria?
Yeah.
And let's go through those, with number 1 being the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because?
The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because residents of Greenwood are used to pole signs with electric message units, not only in this zone, but other zones as well.
Okay. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because?
The use and value of the area adjacent to the property in the variance requested will not be affected in substantially adverse manner because other businesses have pole signs with electric message units on them.
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because?
Yeah, because the entrance of McCammon's when I first went there it was pretty hard to find due to the parking lot being in the back. And I think with a pole sign being there, it'll allow customers know where to turn. Without a pole sign showing where McCammon's entrance is, I believe that there could be, safety concerns.
Okay. Number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. So you are aware of the staff's comments, and then they do have 2 proposed, they're favorable, but have 2 proposed conditions, which is 1, that the sign substantially conform to the rendering depicted in Exhibit C. And number 2, a completed sign permit application be applied for and issued before any modifications occur.
Correct, yes.
And no issues with either of those. Okay, anything else to add before I ask for Mr. Nelson's comments?
I don't believe so.
Okay, Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, so the reason for the request is pole signs are not permitted in CS, and if there is a structural modification, then it is supposed to adhere to our unified development standard. So since there's a structural change, it's not just a face change. They were required to get a variance. The sign will be slightly smaller, and they've also agreed to shift the sign closer to the existing Irish Market sign. So they'll be closer together. There'll be less blank space between the two signs. And staff believes that that will be an overall better look for the pole sign there.
Okay. Anything else? Then, Mr. Iyer, any last word comments for you before I close the public hearing?
I don't think so. I appreciate your guys' time.
Okay. Anyone else on the audio that is wishing to speak to this? I guess I should confirm that. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Ms. Peters?
No questions.
Mr. Fuller?
No questions.
Mr. King? No questions. Mr. Moll? Nope. Only thing I would add is that by not allowing the pole sign where there has previously been one, I would say that probably would create some traffic and safety issues when trying to find the location after being used to looking for the sign. So appreciate all the information here. Do we have all the receipts, notices, everything in order?
Yes, receipts are in order and in the file.
Okay.
Enter into the record a certified copy of the Unified Development Ordinance and also the comprehensive plan.
All right, I will take a motion to accept all those into the record.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any demonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present.
Motion by Mr. Bowen, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Take a motion on the ballot itself.
Chairman, I recommend that we approve the request with the conditions indicated that number one, the sign substantially conforms to the rendering depicted in Exhibit C, and number two, a completed sign permit application to be applied for and issued before modifications occur.
Motion by Mrs. Peters. Jeez, I was
I'm
looking at
very
you
already.
because you
I'm
were
very
getting ready.
Me too.
Second by Mr. Fuller, with the two conditions as listed in staff report. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. I will take a motion to direct the corporation's council to draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance petition presented in variance petition number BZA 2022-019. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Iyer. You are
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good luck.
You too. Any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements?
I have one. I will be in attendance, but I'm respectfully requesting to be virtual.
Okay.
That'd be on the 27th.
Here for that.
I will not be here on the 27th.
Mr. Moll will not be here. You'll be virtual. I should be here.
I should be here.
Okay, we'll be here, because you have to have a quorum if you're gonna have an electronic participant, so we're good.
All right, any other announcements?
Not from planning staff.
Donna?
Yes, sir.
Then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.